iRacing or Assetto Corsa Competizione. It is the battle of giants. Who's the superior? A question many have asked when it comes to GT3 racing. Even the most sophisticated drivers in the world debate which game is the gold standard. And that is what we are discussing today. Hey guys, I'm Dan Suzuki, YouTube content creator and avid player of both iRacing and ACC. I personally love the GT3 class and I think it can offer a ton of high-level racing and excitement. Some of the cars have reached legendary status and are loved across the globe. That is why it is no wonder that sims like iRacing and ACC have fostered a big community around them, but their people are far from unified when it comes to what is the best GT3 sim out there. Both games have aspects going for them and specifics that might give them the edge over the other. We will take a look at aspects such as variety, online system and visuals, and give each competitor points to give you a victor at the end. Now before you think we will talk about realism, one question I keep seeing is which of the two sims offers more realism when it comes to GT3, and I actually think this is a terrible place to start. Think about it, did you ever drive a GT3 car? Most likely not. Will you ever drive a GT3 car? Maybe, but unlikely as well. So why is it such a big thing to have a car feel like in real life? So realism will not be the main point of this video. Now that we have that out of the way, let's establish what fun means for the majority of the drivers. Some connect variability to their enjoyment. If we look at tracks, it seems to be the clear edge for iRacing at first. The game offers a multitude of tracks to race GT3 on, and if we stay offline, you will have a way larger assortment of venues. But a few things have to be considered. First off, you would have to buy every track on their own on iRacing opposed to ACC. So the fun might decrease after your bank account does the same. Even though the selection of circuits is greater, the online calendar for iRacing usually features the same 10 tracks all over again for most series during a season. That's why that argument does not apply in this situation. Many players also take great pride in laser scan tracks. Again, iRacing offers more of them, but they are older by default. Some of the scans are as old as 10 plus years. Since ACC only came out in 2018, their laser scans don't have that problem. So I would say this is not a plus for any of the two games, but a common misunderstanding which would set my score at 1-1. iRacing enthusiasts often make it seem like there are 40 tracks being driven when in reality it's about as much as on ACC. Where diversity does truly matter, however, is with the cars. ACC has the edge there in my opinion. Some say this is again a matter of age, but the number of viable cars is much greater in ACC. For iRacing, almost all of the top splits are being driven by drivers in the same cars. It's Porsche, Lambo and BMW for the most part. Of course there's the occasional AMG in there, but cars like the Ford GT3 for example seem so outdated compared to their counterparts. This is a problem Assetto Corsa Competizione does not really have. The BOP, which means balance of performance, is much more balanced in this game. I may have to add that BOP is often a measure that is used in the professional scene and is not as prominent for the casual player. Maybe it's due to a bigger variety in setups, but you can be fast with pretty much every car. If you want to know more about which GT3 cars are the best for which situations in ACC, you can check out our video we did a while back, right after you finished this one. Naturally, there are some tracks which fit some cars better than others, but I'd rather have it like that than to have some cars basically be useless all around. While there's nothing inherently wrong with a smaller field of cars, it does contribute to the overall enjoyment to be fast with more vehicles. This is strong for ACC, so the Kunos game takes the lead with 2-1. Speaking of fast vehicles, setups are essential to being quick, right? So that's where we will look next. The setup topic also plays a part in the diversity department. There's a clear upper hand for me when it comes to variety. iRacing professionals will probably not like my opinion here, but from what I have seen, the game offers less options for GT3 setups than their counterpart ACC. It usually comes down to one philosophy in the setups that is clearly faster than the others, and that gets driven more of course. In ACC there's more room for creativity and the setup holds more value in my opinion. So much that it's almost too much. There are constant discussions about every little detail, especially about tire pressures for example. It's almost tiring. Just a joke of course. If you want to have fun driving the cars and not bother too much about setups, both games have you covered with decent baseline setups. This might be down to personal preference. If you want a more straight up system, iRacing might even be better here. I can acknowledge both, but I think ACC takes another point, making it 3-1. A place where iRacing is clearly better is the online server structure. This mainly revolves around the opportunity you have to find GT3 racing frequently. If you're a European player and decide to have a go at ACC in the morning, your best option is probably some Australian server that will offer you 200 ping and will grant you the netcode of doom. If it's not prime time, finding quality races from your region can be very tough here. Opposed to that, iRacing is pretty much always up for GT3 Racing. Around the clock there's the opportunity to jump into a race and pretty much be on track in 20 minutes or less and enjoy a ride. The default races also differ a lot in terms of what you play for. iRacing's iRating is a great way to keep people motivated towards grinding and get a sense of pride and accomplishment. In ACC you basically drive for nothing. Even though ACC is solely focused on GT racing, it can be harder to actually do it when you are playing at prime time. This is a big plus for iRacing in my opinion. The rating system also dramatically outclasses ACC, granting iRacing 2 points and leveling the score at 3-3. One of the most important points for any racer discussing this matter will be the car feeling. Although this is highly subjective, some things appear to be universally true. I personally prefer the feeling of the GT3s on ACC over iRacing. The best way I could explain it would be, iRacing is like an act of balance while ACC is a fight or a big battle. You have to be wary with the iRacing GT3s because you might lose the back on corner exit, and some of the cars like the Porsche GT3 Cup car for example are notorious for being tough to handle everywhere. This is why you have to be on your A game all the time and be super smooth on your steering. I think ACC is more forgiving and you truly need to blast the inputs. If you want to get your car through a corner, there's not just one way, but you will need to work for it. An hour of ACC may seem like 3 on iRacing from a physical perspective. This is of course more exhausting, but also less stressful when you don't have to think about spinning or oversteer constantly. Like I said, I personally prefer the more intense experience of ACC, but if you're a fanatic of detail, then iRacing might be better for you here. Usually, however, ACC will prove to be more fun in the GT3 department, so my rating goes to 4-3 for ACC. Lastly, I want to talk about the acoustic and visual aspects of GT3 Racing on these two games. I think both iRacing and ACC can get points here. iRacing looks more fitting and natural to me, even while sporting worse graphics. For me personally, ACC looks a little overloaded with effects and visuals, and sometimes I struggle with sharpness in this game. iRacing seems a little more focused on the action, especially like how the cars move, which I prefer. But the sound is clearly better for the ACC GT3s. Let's just make the test at Imola. I think it's like night and day. While these are only minor aspects for some, others will be looking to have an experience that also appeals to them visually and audibly. So in my eyes, this is a give and take, granting both games a point and giving us the end result of 5-4. Let's get the obvious out of the way. You should test both if you want to get into GT3s. Most of what I said comes down to personal preference. But then again, both games are major time investments for me, so I have some legitimate ground to compare these two games on the basis of GT3. If you could only choose one and could only race GT3 anymore, I would go for ACC. For me, the cars feel better and I like the chance to be fast with like every car that I can drive. With 5-4 it is admittedly close, and that is due to the high level both games operate under. Which game do you like to play more? Don't hesitate to tell us in the comments. For more esport racing content in general, visit overtake.gg or our YouTube and the other social channels. On the right you can find a selection of ACC and iRacing videos just for you. That's it from me, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.